In this section of the tutorial, we will actually write our code using Replit as the code base. The code we are going to work on is this code here, and it's important to appreciate that when programming, we don't always start at the top line and work our way down to the bottom. We often build it up in layers, adding more and more sections as we test that the previous sections have worked properly. So here we are in our Pygame template, which we have some placeholders but no actual code yet. So the first thing that we need to do is imports and initialization of the system. So we're going to go here and we're going to bring in a library of code that's necessary for Pygame. So we use the import command, and notice it turns blue when it recognizes that spelling of import. Import Pygame. In Python, all of the library names and keywords are in lowercase. So import Pygame looks just like that. And we are then going to say pygame.init. Now init is short for initialization, and this is a function that exists within the Pygame library. To make it run, we have to give it brackets. If we just say pygame init without the brackets, then we will have problems, and this is a common mistake that students make. Now normally, the first thing I would do, having initialized this here, is to go to the end and say pygame.quit. If you miss off the pygame.quit, it can leave you with a window on your computer that can't be closed down because Pygame can't be forced to shut down. And you might have to restart your machine in order to do that. It's not really a problem on Replit, but it would be a problem if we were using a local version of Python. So those 3 lines are really one section of code that you would put in when you make a Pygame project. Import the library, initialize it at the start, and make sure to quit. And quit has a open closing brackets there as well to run the quit function. Okay, so we've imported our game, and we would then normally declare a few useful variables for the program as well. One thing that would be very useful is to know some colors. So I'm going to define the color black. Now I'm using capital letters here to make the colors stand out as being something that doesn't change. The color black is always black. It doesn't suddenly become orange. So we're putting it in capitals to show that this is a constant. Black is made up of no color at all. So in the computer, colors are defined as reds, greens, and blues, proportions of those colors. So black is no red, followed by comma, no green, followed by comma, no blue. 0, 0, 0 gives us black. In the same way, full white would be 255, 255, 255, which is the largest numbers that we're allowed to use. I'm also going to define green, and green is made up of, and notice we're giving it a list of values inside brackets here. So we're going to give it no red, 0 red, a full amount of green, which is 255. So 255 is the biggest number that can fit into a byte. So that's 255 full green, and then no blue. So we've declared our black color and our green color, and there's one last thing that we would want to set up. We're going to keep track of the position of an object during our game loop. So we're going to give it some x and y coordinates. So x comma y is setting up our coordinates, and they're going to start out up in a top corner, so small values, and I'm going to use 10, 5. Okay, so we have imported our library, set up the game system, and declared a few useful bits of information for the game. We're now going to move on to actually setting up the screen that the game will appear on. So we're going to call it screen. Screen equals, and now we're going to set up a special Pygame object. So we're going to use Pygame dot, and every time we use a dot, we are reaching further into the available information. So when we imported Pygame, it gave us a whole load of information, and we're going to use part of that called the display. Now, as you can imagine, the display is how we show things using Pygame. So pygame.display, and I'm going to use set_mode. Now, it's important that we do have the underscore. Let me just see what happens if I say set mode and then do a bracket, nothing happens. But if I say set_mode and do a bracket, then Pygame pops up available options for me. So it recognizes that set_mode is the correct way to type that. Okay, so it's looking first of all for a size. So set mode is about giving us a screen to play our game in. And a standard small screen would be 800 by 600. So width, height is how we declare the mode for that screen. Okay, having actually created the screen, I'm now going to do something with it. So I'm going to say screen dot, and this means I'm accessing properties of the screen, and I'm going to ask it to fill itself in with color. A bit like when you drop a paint bucket in Microsoft Paint or something like that. So I'm going to say screen.fill, and then again, this is a function, so it needs to have round brackets. And you can see when I put them in, it's popped up and asked me for a color. Well, we declared black at the start, so I'm going to say fill the screen with black. Okay, so we've got our initialization, we've got the screen set up, it's now time for our game loop. And hopefully we'll remember from a previous chapter that we would do a while loop. So we would just say while true. Now notice that true has a capital T there. If you do a lowercase t, it will not actually show up properly. You see that's in black, whereas when I use a capital T it goes blue because it recognizes the keyword. So while true is our event loop. And what we're going to have to do, so if we just refresh our memory about what's going on here, we set up all of our starting position and then we go into the game loop. And inside the game loop, we see what the user's doing, we update our player pieces, and then we show them on the screen. And we do that over and over again. So to do this, I'm going to have to see what the user's done. I'm going to have to look at the event that the user has created. So I'm going to say for event in Pygame. Now, Pygame has an event loop, so it has a way of seeing what the user's done, whether they've pressed keys, whether they've used the mouse and so on. So it's pygame.event.get. And what that will do is it will fetch all of the things that the user has done and let me inspect them and see what's going on. This is a for loop, so just as the colon here indicated a new block, I'm going to put a colon here, and when I press enter, I'm indented. So this is happening inside the for loop. And I'm going to see what kind of events there's been. I'm going to say if event.type, and I'm going to compare it, so double equals for comparison. So if it's pygame.quit. Now notice quit in capitals here. All of the special event types are in capitals. So when I say event.type, I'm comparing to a special code. So if event.type compares exactly to pygame.quit, this is a question, so I use a colon to declare what's going to happen if it's true. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to break. If they've quit, we want to get out of the main game loop. Okay, that's not the only thing I could look for. I mean, if I did, it would be a fairly boring game. All I could do is press the close button. So I'm also going to say if event.type, if the type of event that the user has created is equal to pygame dot, and then I'm going to look at them pressing a key. So I'm going to say key down. Now notice again, key down in capitals declared here. If they did a key down, I'm just going to say x equals x plus 10. So I'm going to update the position of my player effectively, if that's the case. Alright, now, I need to actually show this happening on screen. So all of that was just seeing what's going on. I want to be able to show what's actually happening. So I'm going to say pygame.draw. I want Pygame to draw something on this screen. Now draw can do a lot of different things. One of the things it can do is make a rectangle. And that's not a rectangle, it's a rectangle. When I make some parameter brackets, it pops up and shows that there's an option there. It wants a surface. Where am I going to draw a rectangle? I'm going to draw it on the screen. So I'm going to give it screen as one of the things to use. When I do a comma, it moves on to wanting a colour. What colour am I going to use? Well, I'm going to use green. Okay, that's fine. And then the next thing it wants is a rectangle. So I'm going to tell it where to position my player. And I'm going to do that by making a list of values inside square brackets. So where do I want to draw it? I want to draw it at the x, y coordinates, and then I need to give it a height and a width. Okay, so you can see it's got a top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right radius. So what I'm going to say is it's going to be 10 pixels wide and 10 pixels high. Okay, so that should draw something onto the screen, but actually, if we try running this code, and here's my screen appearing here, and we have one problem here. So, screen.display.setMode 800/600, argument 1 must be 2-item sequence, not int. Okay, so what I've done here, and it's a bit like when I made this black, I put the values inside brackets. When I say set mode here, I need to set both values as their own set of brackets, like so. So if I run this, you can see a Pygame window. It's not black. Okay, I said fill it with black, it's not black. If I press a key, I'll do it in the window here, nothing's happening. And the reason for this is because when Pygame draws things, it doesn't actually show them on the screen. It draws them behind the scenes. And what you have to do, I'm going to stop this here, and I'm going to say pygame.flip. And what that does is the drawing behind the scene then gets put onto the screen. So if I click on run now, and it's telling me it doesn't have a flip because actually it's not Pygame that has the flip, it is pygame.display.flip. So you can see that we're getting some help here. Flip, Pygame has no attribute flip. Go back and look and see maybe what kind of mistake you've made and maybe missing out or misspelling something if this occurs. And I'll try again, and you can see that now I've got a black screen and I've got a little green square appearing there. If I click up in this window and then press a key, you can see that it's moving along each time. Now, what I'm going to do is just make a few little changes. So I'm going to stop that. The first thing is it's not really moving far enough for me to see what's going on, so I'm going to move it across by 40. And I'm maybe going to move it down as well. So I'm going to say y equals y plus 30. Maybe not as much because it's not as high a screen as it is wide. And when I run this, it takes a little while to initialize, and then my screen appears. I'm going to click in this window to make sure it's capturing my mouse and keyboard events. And when I press a key, you can see it's moving, or it's redrawing a new version further down each time.